Okay, this is Joe Leigh here for Seconds Out. Joe Gallagher joins me here to talk all things boxing. We have a lot of things coming out from the gym constantly. Um, we'll start with Tasha Jonas out in Manchester again this year, fighting another unification fight. Big year for her. Just talk to us about the next step in her journey. Another title fight, of course, but her career has just been title after title after title recently, and big fight after big fight. Obviously, we've seen her fight better opponents, but in terms of getting the title, she's doing it all at the moment.
Yeah, Tasha Jonas now. This is a third fight, 2022, a third world title fight, and like I said, it'd be an unbelievable achievement to win 3 world titles in 3 fights this year, and to win the ring belt as well. She's fighting the number 1, Maria Dicker, and Tasha's number 2 for the ring belt. So it'll be a phenomenal achievement. Maria's only lost once to Clarissa Shields, and she's a good fighter. That was a loss over the distance on points. So it's just unbelievable. Natasha, 38 years of age, and I just hope. I feel people say it's typical me, but I just don't feel Natasha is really getting the credit for what she's doing and what she's achieving. When you think about that, she went into the Garden with Terry Harper, beat Terry Harper, who was going to give her Fight of the Year, then fought Katie Taylor behind closed doors in the Manchester Evening News Arena. And if you look at Katie's record, she's the one that's pushed Katie Taylor the closest, if you look at the scorecards. And then from then she's come back. She's moved up 3 weight divisions, beat Namus, then beat Lindbergh and Liverpool. Now she's going fighting the number 1 in a weight division for the ring belt. I think it's fantastic what she's doing, and I just hope she gets everything that's coming her way, but more so from a fellow peers, really, like Boxing News. I don't think they've been very kind in the write-ups with her. And I just think what she's doing, I feel is phenomenal. She's inspiring a lot of people. She was the first one to represent Britain at the Olympics, to qualify for a female at the Olympics, and she's still inspiring the next generation with what she's achieving in the pro game. So it's a huge fight at the Manchester Arena, at the home of where she won a world title earlier on this year against Chris Namus. And it's a big night for her. Obviously, it was a great fight, good 10 rounds in Liverpool, where she picked up the WBC world title. And now she's fighting a solid operator, and we're fighting someone that, when the time we get in the ring, there may be, I'd say, close to a stone in discrepancy in weight at that 11 stone, or I'd say around 10 pounds at least, because we're dealing with a solid fighter who's coming down to 154, where Natasha, she's got a check weight today, and she's like 4 pounds under the weight already. Do you know what I mean? So she just walks around at it. So yeah, it's a big fight, and it's one we're confident of winning, but it's a very tough fight.
Yeah, do you rank her higher than Harper? Where do you rank her in comparison to Katie Taylor, Terry Harper, and all the previous fighters Natasha's fought?
Well, outside of Katie Taylor, Maria Dicker is the number 1 at this weight division, at the light middleweight. So yeah, it's Katie Taylor and Maria Dicker. This is a real tough fight for Tasha Jonas, and she's got to be hugely motivated. She's coming over here. She's usually a popular girl over in Canada, and she'll be wanting to win all them belts as well. So it's a huge night and a big fight, and women's boxing this year just seems to be growing and growing and growing. We've got that huge card this weekend coming up, and yeah, it's really on the up at the moment, women's boxing.
I just want to touch on quickly, if Tasha, and I believe she won the Terry Harper fight as well, if she was to have got the decision, do you believe there would have been more credit? Do you think that's partly where it comes from? She obviously hasn't always been the A side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she was never the A side, was she, with Terry or with Katie? But the thing is, Natasha, I think she did an interview a year ago, and everyone was questioning her decision to move on. And obviously, there was a bit of a fallout with Eddie Hearn, the way that he brought her to a press conference, tried to accuse us of not wanting to fight the right opponents. And she said to a journalist, well, give me a year from now and tell me whether I made the right decision. And it seems to be right, doesn't it? She's here now with 2 world titles and going into another unification fight with the ring belt on the line as well. So it was the right decision for her, and she's doing very well as well, doing a pundit work for Sky. And I think Tasha's one of them. She's a bit like a male crawler. There's no one's got a bad word to say about Natasha. She's just a really likable person whose dedication is unbelievable. It really is. I wish sometimes gymnasiums were full of Tasha Jonas's.
Comparisons to Katie Taylor and definitely Anthony Croller as well. I want to talk about, you just mentioned there's some big fights on this weekend, but I have to bring it back first of all to last weekend, obviously, or the fight that didn't happen. Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. or Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. It was a wild week in boxing. It started off disappointing with AJ Fury officially being cancelled or whatever that was. But I want to talk to you about the failed drug test, or I guess you can't say failed, adverse finding. What did you make of it? Were you surprised when you first heard of it? Because when the news first came out, the promoters had already known for weeks.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to reading boxing news this week. I see Matt Christie put some questions out on social media the other week, and to see what answers he got from them. It's only when you're coming away now you just think to yourself, wow, they nearly pulled that off. And it's affecting all levels. Obviously, the British Boxing Board of Control were involved, Eddie Hearn, Sauerland, Wasserman, everyone was involved, and they nearly pulled it off. And if it wasn't for the Daily Mail exposing it, that could have gone ahead. And you're seeing questions on social media. Is this the first time? How many fights have gone ahead when we haven't known about something in the past? And this big hush hush. And I think it's boxing's always had an image years ago that it can be dirty. And you have characters in the past when people say, oh, the mob were involved and this was going on. And for all the time I've been involved, I've always been seeing it as straightforward and clean and going forward, and that's it. And the sport, boxing, sometimes doesn't help itself, does it? But to have somebody like Eddie Hearn and Kyle Sauerland, 2 very big profiles in the world of boxing, to try and, I'm not so, I've got to be careful how I word this, try and collaborate something to get the fight over the line. It's hard really, because I think it was fight week or the week before it, they were all in Good Morning Britain selling the fight, knowing well that one of these have tested positive. They allowed people 2-3 weeks out from whatever the date the test are found out, buy train tickets, buy hotel rooms, and buy fight tickets, buy subscriptions to the Zone, and buy pay-per-view. Surely there's got to be inundated with loads of small claims at courts for everything else for this now, this shoe. Then you look at Conor Benn sparring partners. They're most be thinking all of a sudden, hang on a minute, what, he was tested positive for something, and they were sparring with him. So there's lots on every levels of people associated to it that are thinking to themselves, wow, they nearly paid this off, and wow, they pulled the wool over our eyes. And they nearly tried to pull off the biggest, I won't say eyes, but the biggest, I don't know what you'd have called it, but it's shocking to believe that they had, even right up to, I think it was 4:00 Friday or the Thursday, Friday, still trying to make it happen. And you just think, wow, how could that happen? He's tested positive on his sample by VAR and the A sample. They've notified straight away the promoters, the fighters, the commission. Conor Benn then has an option straight away to question that and activate, we'll test the B sample. That doesn't seem to have happened there at the moment. Very much when we talked about Dylan White's B sample, boxers have an opportunity there and then to test the B sample. Now, if they test the B sample and it's positive again, then they failed, and then there's the punishment. Sometimes by not giving the go-ahead to activate the B sample, I'm not sure whether that's happened with Dylan White or if it's happening with Conor Benn. But then all of a sudden they haven't had the B sample, and the board don't acknowledge VADA, and it's UK and WADA, and it's all murky, ifs and buts in a grey area. At the end of the day, VADA, which is, people would say, is the premium drug testing agency in the world, you're not going to take their opinion on board, and you just can't do that. You can't move the goalposts when it suits to fit. It's very much, you tested positive by VADA, and that's it. Question it straight away. Get the athlete to say no, do the B sample test and see if it is. The trouble is if they do it and it's tested positive, they've got nowhere else to go. So they don't activate that, go on, test it immediately. So it just sits and sits and sits, and it never gets done. So, and as we've seen in the past, and like Eddie is saying, well, Conor Benn's not been suspended or anything else, but to try and pull off that at the weekend with knowing the information that they had, and them knowing about it for 3-4 weeks. And it's all right saying that a UCAD anti-doping test, it came back clean, but I never knew what was the difference on the dates, the time span that had elapsed between them. I read somewhere this morning it was 2 or 3 weeks. So anything that may have been in sample A, there's a good chance could have gone away in them 2 or 3 weeks with it. And did UCAD go and do that testing only because of what they've been told by VADA? So yeah, listen, I'm sure that there's lots of disgruntled customers. There's a lot of fans that booked hotels that want refunds. Train fares have been paid, tickets have been paid, subscriptions have been paid to the Zone. I think it was £9.99 and then £20 on bus. They got to get fully reimbursed for the full £29, £30, and the fact that they attempted, there's lots of people out there annoyed and angry, and the cost of living is on the rise at the moment, and some people can't really afford to just wipe their mouths with that amount of money for a trip away to London for the weekend to watch a huge fight. Yeah, it's a mess, and we wait to see what happens with the British Boxing Board of Control. The British Boxing Board of Control were aware of it, but like everybody else has said, were they going to allow it roll? And they only acted on it becoming public in the mainstream on the Mail Online. That's the questions for Robert Smith and the people at the board. It's interesting to see how they've got to handle this, but the brazen attempt to pull such a thing off, and I've seen Eubank Jr, and to bring a fighter, Chris Eubank Jr, who I must say has come out with huge credit after this, has remained professional. He made the weight. For him to ask to be made weight, and then he agreed to literally go in and say, no, I'll still fight him, knowing that he'd tested positive. I think that's when Sauerland really should have stepped in and went, no, fighters can be too brave for their own good at the time, and cornermen get an awful lot of stick. But I think this was, for instance, Sauerland should have said, no, now, Conor, Chris, this isn't happening. We're having nothing to do with this. We're out, and that's it. So, be interesting to see what's said over the next few weeks and what actions are taken, and if there's any bans or suspensions or fines to be handed out.
What do you think?
It's unbelievable to think about what they were trying to do last weekend and hoodwink the British public. It's like I say, it's only in boxing, really. It's only in boxing.
What do you think the punishment should be for Conor Benn?
I don't think it's just necessary for Conor Benn. Conor Benn, obviously, he's been banned. He's been found. If Conor wants to argue the case, then activate VADA to sample test sample B, and if it comes back clear, then you've got a case. But if it comes back positive, then you've got to be punished or banned. I know fighters in the past that have had big bans and fines and suspensions for recreational drugs. I think Liam Cameron was given 4 or 5 years by the British Border Control for, I think it was cocaine or some type of recreational drug in him. And yet there's others. That's on the world scene. It'd be interesting to see what the board do with this, with Conor Benn. And also, I just don't think Conor Benn. I do feel that it's got to be hard for the board. I think Eddie Hearn did an interview and he half alluded to people jumping on the finger when they were part of it right now, whether it was referring to the Dylan White situation at the time in Sky Sports and Boxing Board of Control were all involved in it. I don't know, but it'd be very hard for the Board of Control to say to Sauerland and Eddie Hearn, you all knew about this and we're going to suspend your promotional license for however long. That's very easy. I don't think it damages them whatsoever, because they do have Caller's Nisa, Eddie Hearn's Frank Smith. So I don't think it does. But I think some type of things happen. But will the board push against them? Because Caller and most probably Eddie Hearn will go, well, yous were all in it 3 weeks ago with us. And you should have acted then. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of news to come over that situation in the next couple of weeks. Okay, I want to talk about the potential. It looks like it's going to happen. Tyson Fury versus Derek Chisora 3. You've obviously been in boxing for a long time, Joe. A trilogy fight with Derek Chisora. I think I'll agree with Frank. It is one of the only fights that can be made at the moment. I'm sure that Andy Ruiz fight could have been made, although he's going to fight the winner of Wilder Helenius this Saturday night. What do you think of this fight for Tyson?
Listen, I think there was a lot of us at the time when they were doing Tyson Deontay Wilder 3. We're like, why do we need to see that? And it turned out to be absolutely one of the best heavyweight fights we've seen for a very long time. We'd be blessed if anything like that happened with this. I'm sure that there'd be a Hrgovic, or there was fighters out there that they could have fought. But it is what it is. If they've got to say, listen, this is a keep busy fight before we go and take on Usyk, I think a lot of people will be going, yeah, okay then. But the fact that it's not Anthony Joshua, which they've tried to get through no fault of their own, it is a ticking over. And you've just got to look at in the heavyweight history, years and years ago, whether it be Larry Holmes, or whether it be Lennox Lewis, or whether it be Muhammad Ali, just Roman fighters, heavyweight world champions, had tick-over jobs. I wouldn't say tick-over jobs, but had defences that weren't the mandatory fights, just to keep them active, to keep the tools sharp ahead of Usyk. And Tyson Fury most probably thinks, okay, them two fights with Chisora were quite a while away. Derek's one of the last performances was with Usyk, a current Usyk, not that far long ago. So most probably wants to think to himself, right, how will I do with Usyk now, with Usyk that fought with Chisora that did with Usyk? So that might be it. So yeah, we'll just have to see. But the fact is you can't turn around and start accusing Tyson Fury of taking easy touches. Took Deontay Wilder on 3 times. Just after Anthony Joshua a chance back in to the heavyweight division. So if they don't want to fight and Derek Chisora does, then that's the fight that's going to happen, and it'll have to be. But as long as the next fight is the winner of Wilder Ruiz or is Usyk, I can understand the Alexander Usyk wants time out with his family, but I think that fight Tyson Usyk, I think that will happen March, April next year, definitely. And if it is a tick-over job and they come out and say it's, I won't say that's a bit too disrespectful to Derek Chisora, but it is a fight to keep him busy, keep the tools sharp, keep his mind straight, to help build up to Usyk, I don't think people should have a problem with it.
Okay, I want to skip through this weekend's fights, October 15th. There's a lot going on. So in order to get through them quickly, just a name. You can, if you want to, just a little explanation, then it's up to you. But I'll start with Hearn Kambosos 2, and you can just say who you think's going to win. If you want to add a little something, then feel free to. But Hearn Kambosos.
Yeah, no, I think Devin Haney wins again. More comfortable. I might get the stoppage this time.
Deontay Wilder returns. Robert Helenius is the man in his, the opponent he'll be facing. How do you see that one?
That's a good fight. Looking forward to it. It's just great to have Deontay Wilder back. I think he's a great addition to the heavyweight division, and it'd be a loss if he wasn't in it. So I'm looking forward to him back, and hopefully he's still carrying that power in that right hand. But I do expect a knockout from Wilder.
Shields Marshall.
Very tough fight. I was swaying very heavy for Savannah first time round. I think second time round, it's very hard to cancel a camp after all that training, come back and then start a camp 4 weeks out. Shields, being to America, being back, it's a very, very tough fight to call. I still will pick Savannah on a close points decision.
Okay, I want to finish off on the gym. What's the latest with Callum Johnson, Joe?
Yeah, no, Callum Johnson, he's got to be out this year now. We're just waiting the date. He'll be fighting for the European title, and I'll be getting the date and venue and anytime soon. So I'd say Tasha Jonas, November the 12th. Clark Smith fought Friday night. He'll be out on Natasha's bill. Callum Johnson's out before the end of the year. Possibly maybe Mark Heffron again before the end of the year. He's had a brilliant year. Charlie Edwards, we should know something very soon. Paul Butler is in a massive undisputed fight with Inoue at the end of the year. So we've had a great year up to now, and we've got a massive. And there's another one, Paul Butler. Everyone goes on about roads to the undisputed. Paul Butler's in an undisputed fight, and deservedly so. He's won a world title. He's a two-time world champion, and he's going at the Lions Den and fighting Inoue. So it's we've got two massive fights. We've got Paul Butler and Natasha Jonas fighting in unification fights and fighting for ring belts, and that's a great way to end the year.
Charlie Edwards, it seems like he's been waiting on news or about to drop news for like a year now. Is there actually news to be dropped?
Listen, Charlie's as I say, he's in the gym all the time. He's training. Yeah, he's out in Portugal, just training out there at the moment. And we're just waiting to see what he's got to do next, what his next step is.
Okay. And then with Callum, how is he? Because obviously he's been close to a big fight, time off.
Callum Johnson's been a really tough 12 months. Very much like Yuri Fury at the moment. He got COVID at the beginning of the year. It absolutely ruined his fight with Joe Smith. Yeah. And then they brought him back again. Then he was due to have another big fight and got COVID again. So I said to him, listen, you need to have time out, complete time out, away from boxing, and let your immune system get back, get healthy again. He's back in the gym. He's got a great attitude. He's got a huge appetite. Frank's delivered again. Frank and George got him the European title fight. Obviously, there was the European title fight purse bids for Callum Johnson and Josh Boatser. They pulled out of it. But Frank's delivered Callum Johnson still the European title fight. So he's out to make a statement before the end of the year. And he wants to repay back Frank and George for keeping the faith with him. And I'm looking forward to putting in a good performance and winning that European title.
Well, I think that's bang on half an hour, actually, Joe. Thank you for doing this morning on Tuesday. I'm not sure when this is going to go out, actually, but good to catch you. Best of luck to everyone on the team. And we'll see if your predictions are right this weekend as well. There's a lot going on in the world of boxing.
Yeah, there is, mate, isn't there?